Hey, what's up? I hope so. I hope so. But this is QnA, the show where I take everything that you have asked me on YouTube, Twitter, and everything in between and answer them here in video format. A ton of questions to get into. So let's just jump into it. We're going to start with a question from Wolfstan, who says, it's just really sad how drastic one way or the other the team, and yes, they are playing poorly and it shows, yet other teams in the same position or worse do worse, and they don't have as much drama when it comes to the media as the Cleveland Browns. Is this for any good reason? Well, the one reason that this happens is because the team's level of play is just volatile, right? It's either really good, really bad, and it varies from which side of the ball that's going to be. Very rarely is it together, right? They've had one performance like that. So that plays a role in how people react to this. People getting new to having a team that has expectations and that team falling below those expectations has a role in this, and people knowing that there's a little bit of a time crunch here with this team, right? Like, you don't have forever to figure these things out. You have a very limited amount of time, and right now it don't look like they're going to really handle this in the right amount of time. So, people are worried about this team's ability to capitalize, and I don't blame them. Does it get a little wild sometimes? Yes, it definitely gets wild. People like freak out, have meltdowns, and like give up on the season when like you're a game and a half out of first place. But I get why the reactions have been drastic one way or the other, because the play has been drastic one way or the other. The next question comes from Time Traveler 55, who says, what are the big issues with Baker Mayfield, keeping him so inconsistent and unable to carry his team in comparison to somebody like Lamar Jackson across the league, carrying the Ravens offense nearly every week? Well, one, they're just two different quarterbacks, right? I think that's not a great comparison, right? I mean, the best comparison would be Baker Mayfield this year versus Baker Mayfield from last year, because Baker Mayfield last year did carry this team at times when they needed him. They needed him in Jacksonville when nothing else was working. He got things working enough to win that game. I felt like he was a driving force in the Tennessee game, Cincinnati. You can count like multiple games last year where Baker Mayfield put the team on his back and won the game, and did what he needed to do. He almost did that against the Raiders last year too, if it weren't for a drop touchdown. So when it comes to Baker's ability to carry the team, like, he has shown that he can do it. He's just not consistent enough that you can rely on it. And that's been the issue. And what that comes down to, I don't know. He has the talent to do it, right? Lamar does it in a very different way. Lamar is a tremendous athlete, and he puts so much stress on the defense with his athleticism, and now he's becoming a more consistent pocket passer, which is adding so much to that, so much of what he brings to the football field. He does it in a different way. Baker still, though, he has the accuracy, he has the arm strength, he has the ability to carry the team. He just doesn't do it consistently enough, especially not this year. Next question comes from Wesley Johnson, who says, if the Browns finish 9-7, which, honest to God, I hate to say, but I think it's where we're going to be at, Browns miss the playoffs, do you pay Baker? It depends on how they get to 9-7, right? It would take, for Baker to get paid after 9-7, it would take a tremendous failing of the defense. Like, it would have to be obvious that Baker was carrying the team into these games, putting up amazing numbers, and the defense was just putting up more amazing numbers for the other offense. Like, that's the only way I can justify it. Right now, I mean, the most likely, and again, I don't like that we're in this scenario, but if he continues to be inconsistent this year, if he continues to not play well on a consistent basis, I mean, he's had maybe 2 or 3 good games this year, then you have to, I don't think he's not going to be the starter next year, but he's going to be in a quarterback competition in camp or something like that. Like, it's not going to be guaranteed for him, the future, if this team doesn't turn it around fast, and specifically if he doesn't turn it around fast. So, it's not like comforting. It's not what anybody wants to hear, including myself, but it is the reality of where we're at. I mean, you can't ignore it. He's had 3 good games so far, and it's week 11. We need more consistency than that if we're going to give you $35 or even $25 million a year. You need more consistency out of the guy, or else we're going to have to look at other options that are a little bit more economical, because the thing is with Baker Mayfield, he's going to sign somewhere and somebody is going to pay him a decent amount. I don't know, $35 million, but a decent amount, more than what I think the Browns might be willing to pay if this is the level of play that they can get out of him, and if there's not a level of trust that he's going to improve. It's not a great situation. 9-7, I don't think you're getting rid of Baker at that point, but you most certainly are introducing some competition for him one way or the other. Like, the backup's going to be a little bit tougher competition than Case Keenum. Next question comes from David Miner, who says, how mad would you be if we lose to Detroit? Honestly, man, I wouldn't even be mad, because I don't put it past them how they played this year to be that team that gives Detroit their first win. I don't put it past this team. Like, I would have to be shocked to be mad. And after giving up 45 unanswered points, I don't think there's anything else. And let me knock on some wood before, you know what I mean? But I just, is there really anything else that could shock you with this team this year when it comes to how good they can play on one game and how bad they can play in another? Like, I have no idea how they're going to come out against Detroit. And obviously they should win, but, should and do are two different things. And I'm not confident enough that they're going to beat Detroit that I would be mad if they lost. Not that I wouldn't be upset. I would be upset. But if we're talking about mad, angry, they blew it. Like, you lose to Detroit, bro, that's just LOL. You know what I mean? You're a joke. Like, it's not even worth being mad about. So I don't even know if I could conjure up the energy to be mad if they lose to a winless Detroit team at home. The next question comes from Jacob, who says, hey, Q, if Baker isn't the guy which people are starting to have serious doubts about, then what are the options? A trade for a flyer on Rodgers or Russ? Trade for some draft capital to move up? What is the fix to Baker's issue, and if that is in fact an issue? Okay, so if Baker continues to play at this middling level, right, the Browns are probably going to take 1 or 2 courses of action. They have already gave him that 5th-year option. Now, it's going to be a pretty expensive 5th-year option, but I think they'll ride out the 5th-year option, obviously. Then after that, they have the franchise tag. Now, that means you have 2 years of theoretical control. Now, I don't know what the long-term plans are, right? They might think in their head that franchise tag is going to Denzel Ward, and that's who they're going to franchise tag, and that they'll let Baker walk in that 5th year, after that 5th year. So I don't know what their planning is, but I'm pretty sure they already have a plan in place about what they're going to do, given that they have re-signed a ton of people so far. So if it is in fact the case that Baker continues this level of play, which is not worth $25 million, you have to ask yourself how you want to go about this going forward, because the fact of the matter is that Baker is significantly better than nothing, right? Like, there is where Baker Mayfield is playing, and then there's like what you got to live with Case Keenum, and that's unacceptable, right? When we talk about the Mendoza line of like, I think this term, and I'm going to go on a little scenic route here to answer this question, Jacob. When people talk about a quarterback being good enough to win a championship, I think we overuse that term, because so many quarterbacks are good enough to win a championship. Even Baker, how he's playing, you could win a championship with Baker Mayfield on the right team, because he's not limited in such a way that it's going to stop you from winning a Super Bowl if everything else goes right? And Baker normally plays at a level where you don't have to worry about everything else going right, but this year he just hasn't. So, even Baker now, where I'm very disappointed in his level of play, you could still win a Super Bowl with that. It would just take a lot more around him. But then there's guys like Case Keenum. There's no expectations for greatness when you start Case Keenum. So that's where they find themselves in, right? You don't want to go back to that, but you don't want to stay with what you have, and you don't want to commit to what you have in this theoretical situation. So what do? You probably keep Baker for that 5th year. You keep him on that franchise tag year, and maybe while you do that, you draft somebody, and you hope they're ready in a year or two when you're going to let Baker walk in free agency, theoretically, right? That's how a lot of teams would handle it. Now, you trade for somebody like Rodgers or Russ, you might as well just get rid of Baker off the bat, right? Because there's no sense in keeping him here. If you're going to have Rodgers or Russell Wilson, those kind of quarterbacks are going to demand pretty much that you don't have Baker Mayfield just sitting a pine back there. That's not a good situation for them to be in. As far as draft capital to move up, not this year. There's not a single quarterback I would move up in the draft for. Maybe somebody falls in the 2nd round, you take a flyer on them. Look, as of right now, with Baker Mayfield, unless he changes something drastically in these last 7 games, and maybe he goes on a playoff run, then things can change. But as of right now, with the level of play, and this is fair to Baker, he has played himself into a quarterback competition next offseason. Who they bring in to do that, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be a higher quality candidate than Case Keenum. Whether that be a drafted player, whether that be a free agent, whether that be whatever. That's what he has played himself into for next season. So that's kind of what the path is right now. I would love for Baker to catch on fire, get hot, and lead this team to greatness. So we don't got to talk about, a quarterback controversy. That's the last thing I want to do. But if he doesn't improve, that's the reality. The next question comes from Red Lepra, who says, do you think the comments from Miles' no in-game adjustment in Batonio speak to larger issues and dissension, or just post-game frustration after getting our butts kicked? Wonder about your take on it. I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, it's been leaking out, right? The frustration with the defense. They are clearly not happy with what they are doing defensively. And when you give up 45 unanswered points, people's going to start pointing fingers. You know what I mean? Miles is not going to point the finger at his own teammates that he has to go on the field with. I mean, he has to point out the obvious, which was, Joe Woods did a terrible job game planning and adjusting in that game. And he got outcoached thoroughly by Josh McDaniels. So, there's some truth to what he's saying. I don't know if it's dissension more than it's disagreement. I mean, look, the same exact thing. I think people have short memories on this, but the same exact thing happened when Greg Williams was here. Miles was very vocal about his disagreeing with what Greg Williams was asking him to do early in his career. So, if Miles sees a problem with the defense, he's going to bring it up. He's going to be vocal about it, and that's why he's a leader. The next question comes from Denzel, who says, Q, should we chill on not setting the franchise on fire by firing everyone and hope they can actually learn and get better even if they miss the playoffs? I mean, it depends on what you say is set on fire. Look, the head coach isn't going anywhere. I know there's some people who already want to fire Kevin Stefanski, called him Matt Nagy already. He's not going anywhere. He's going to be here next year. Baker is not going to be cut. He's going to be here next year. Whether he's going to be in the competition, that's up in the air. But he's going to be here next year. So I don't think it's going to be, a fire sale by this franchise, because they've already locked up some key pieces. It's going to be a shift, though. They're going to reshuffle the deck on the defensive side of the ball. Probably Joe Woods is gone. I would be pretty sure Joe Woods is gone. I wouldn't be surprised if they asked Alex Van Pelt to leave too, because offensively this has been a disappointment. The next question comes from Fredo, who says, what's your thoughts on 6? Is he broken? I don't know if he's broken or if the offense is broken. And to be honest with you, I don't know which one of those is more concerning. So all I know is something is not working, something is off, and the same personnel packages, the same plays that I saw him execute last year, he's not executing this year. I don't know why. The next question comes from Mike, who says, does Joe Woods make it through the bye week? More than likely, right? I mean, you have to remember, the Browns aren't going to fire Joe Woods in the middle of the year because they're very, 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 very worried and conscious about the perception of them. And if you fire a defensive coordinator in the middle of the year, you look like same old Browns. And Jimmy Haslam has been very sensitive about that perception of him, right? The hot-headed owner that's going to fire people because he had to fire, Rob Chudzinski after 1 year, and then he had the whole Hugh Jackson thing go down. They're very sensitive and conscious about that. So I don't think they're going to fire a coordinator in the middle of the year just because of that. And also, I mean, if you don't like Joe Woods, I don't know how you would feel about Joe Woods' understudy. Yeah, there's just no other defensive replacement, right? This isn't like the offense where if you had to fire Alex Van Pelt, if it were that bad, and it's not, well, it's bad, but it's not fire Alex Van Pelt level bad. But let's say you had to fire Alex Van Pelt. On the offensive side of the ball, you got Bill Callahan that could step up. You got Stump Mitchell who could step up. You got experienced coaches on that side of the ball that could step up and that have taken over that role before. On the defensive side of the ball, it's not like that. So you're kind of stuck with Joe Woods because you really don't have an adequate replacement. And, firing Joe Woods just to have an inadequate replacement is kind of doing the opposite of what you thought would accomplish with firing Joe Woods. You're probably going to want to wait till the end of the season to do that. Next question comes from Arindol, who says, what's your take on the drop-off at corner this week compared to last week when they were clamping down on much better wide receivers? That's pretty much my description of a lot of what happened on Sunday. Sometimes the NFL gives you one of these games, where nothing makes sense. It doesn't carry over week to week. And then the next week, it's like that game never happened. It's just one of those. I don't know. I have no idea. No idea. No idea what broke down. Just, it could be possible that everybody just woke up on the wrong side of the bed and decided to play their worst football game of the year all at the same time. Sometimes these games happen, man, and there's not a lot to explain it. And this is one of those weeks where, there's some weeks where the issues are football related and you can go into the film and break it down and really explain it and really, really give some insight. This is one of those weeks where it's just one of those throw your hands up I don't know what happened. You know what I mean? And we've all had those. If anybody has played team sports, anybody in these situations has had that, right? I was on a very bad baseball team in high school, and there were a lot of those, I don't know what happened. We just suck today. That's kind of just, I would love to give a more scientific answer to your question, man, but it's just one of them games where we just sucked, and there's really not a great explanation for why. Next question comes from Marquise, who says, despite the Browns' blow-up, does this NFL season across the league seem strange? Teams are losing games we feel like they shouldn't, which makes the playoff picture unpredictable. It's truly any given Sunday. Yeah, that's the reality of it. We don't know what's going to happen for the rest of this year. That's for sure, right? This image is pretty much the entire NFL season. It's on fire. Nobody knows. Nobody knows how this thing going to go down. So just throw your hands up in the air. It's a roller coaster ride, and we'll see where it ends. We'll see where it ends. Hopefully, we're not disappointed, but, we're going to see where it ends because as much as this might excite you or pain you, this ride, this Cleveland Browns season, not even remotely close to over. This is a team that is a game above, well, not a game above, but a game and a half out of first place in week 11. This is a team that's a game and a half out the wild card in week 11. These games still gonna matter. The season is nowhere near close to over, and they can still make the playoffs. And the way this season's going, if you make the playoffs this year, who the hell knows what's gonna happen after that? But yeah, Marquise, you're right. This is one of them seasons, and anything can happen when it's one of them seasons. But that's it for this week's Q&A. Thank you guys for asking these questions. Have a great day. Have a good night.